3 o'clock. All right, and we are live. Welcome all to the Self-Publishing Roundtable. I am your moderator, not Wade Finnegan. Yes, I am Erica Conroy, and my co-panelists tonight are Christian Callahanna. Thank you for joining us, Christian. Hello.
Hello all, Christian Callahanna here, back again in the white wall, trying to get some contrast here because I'm the only dark thing in it, maybe the chair. How are y'all doing?
Oh dear. And of course, Robert Chaz Shoot is joining us again this week. Hi, Chaz.
Hello, Erica. Robert Chaz Shoot from allthatchaz.com. I am here to run the stuff in the background. I'll be quiet as a mouse. I swear I won't bother anyone at all.
That doesn't sound interesting at all.
And I'm done.
Oh, great. So everyone watching us live on self-publishingroundtable.com, we encourage you to leave questions and comments, and we will make our best efforts to get them into the conversations. And our special guest tonight is a former co-host of the Self-Publishing Roundtable, but current co-host of her own podcast, the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast. Please welcome Lindsay Buroker.
Hello. I don't think any of you were actually hosts during the very brief time that I was doing the Self-Publishing Roundtable. It's a whole new crew.
No.
A whole old crew. I don't know.
No, that's great. The turnover just happens and the podcast keeps going.
That's good. That means you have longevity or something snazzy like that.
Yeah, yes. Just a whole lot of money and no sense.
We just keep on going and going and going.
I believe the others are into real estate now and depression.
I think that pays more, I hear, than podcasting.
Yeah. So let's dive right into this. Basically, so Lindsay, can you just introduce yourself and how you started writing and what you're currently working on?
Wow, I haven't done one of these for a while. Let's see, let's try to say something intelligent. What is it, 2016? I've been self-publishing for almost 6 years now. I was writing since I was a little kid, kind of got serious about it around 2008 or so, and a couple of times I'd gotten serious about it and joined an online writing workshop, but around 2008, 2009, I finally finished a novel, and I liked it. It was my Emperor's Edge, what became the first book, but it didn't seem like the kind of thing an agent would necessarily go for. At the time, every time I went to an agent's website, it was like, no high fantasy, no Tolkien, no orcs, no elves, and even though I didn't have orcs and elves, it was definitely a secondary world kind of fantasy, and they just did not want it as far as I could tell. So I wrote another high fantasy novel. Not sure what the logic was there. It's just, I always have to write what I'm passionate about. So, and then I was getting ready to try to actually get an agent for that. I think I sent out maybe 10 query letters. But about that time, I got my first Kindle. This was fall of 2010. And I stumbled across J.A. Conrad's blog. And he was posting how much money he was making self-publishing. And within like 3 days, I was like, oh, forget this agent trad publishing thing. I'm self-publishing. So that's how I got involved with that. Since then, I did not start out writing really fast or writing a lot of novels. I should say I still don't like really fast. I know you've had Amanda Emily on here, and I don't think anybody compared to her writes fast. But now I'm doing about 10 novels a year between my name and my pen name, and I'm somewhere over 30. And I have a bit of a cold, so if I mute myself to cough, I'm sorry. Please speak while I'm hacking.
We'll be more than happy to. All right. Oh, were you not coughing now? Oh, okay.
Oh, I was done talking. Sorry. Put up the sign, like your turn.
Right. And tell us about, first, let's talk about your fantasy, the ones that started it off in 2010. And then I'd like to talk about why you decided to go to sci-fi.
All right. So my first series, as I mentioned, was The Emperor's Edge. And after publishing it, I learned that you're not actually supposed to name your series after your first book. You're supposed to have a cool name. So tip for those new writers out there. And I wrote those. I experimented with some novellas on the side, did some short stories, started another series a couple years later, the Dragon Blood series, which was not supposed to be a series. another tip coming up. If you write the first book as a standalone, it's harder to turn it into a series.
Why is that?
People are like done, especially in that particular series. I mean, I had a happily ever after. It was kind of a fantasy romance. And the second one started with new characters, so people were not necessarily wanting to they're like, oh, they're not even about the same characters. So that series didn't take off. I mean, it did okay. They had pretty cool covers, I thought, and they did okay. But it didn't really take off till I boxed up the first three. And by that point, I was into the series. By the end of the third book, you're into it. There's stuff going on to keep you reading. And I should say I have never been like a huge bestseller, but at the same time, I've been six figures for a while. So even if you don't take off, hugely with one book or one series, if you keep publishing and you do get a readership over time, you can certainly do well enough to make a living and some change. What was the question next about my science fiction? Or
why don't you switch over to science fiction? I noticed your covers and they seem kind of space opera-y / Star Wars-y. Are you writing the market, or is this something you really want?
No. I keep thinking what a good idea that would be. Ever since those agents wanted something else than what I was writing. But I actually had written science fiction romance with my pen name starting a couple years ago, and I enjoyed that. That was actually my first love. As a kid, my mom and I used to watch Buck Rogers and the reruns of the original Star Trek, and I think there was one more that was on back then. This was in the 80s, way back in the day.
1999, Battlestar Galactica with Lauren Green.
I didn't actually see the original Battlestar Galactica. That was a little before my time. I'm actually surprised I remember anything from Buck Rogers because I think I was about 3 when that was on. Wow. I remember the robot, and apparently when you're 3, the robot was awesome. But I totally was a science fiction lover as a kid, especially, kind of space opera, not too heavy in the science. I read, before I found fantasy, I was reading all of the Star Trek books. At one point, there must have been over 100 at the time, and I think I'd read them all. This did nothing for my social life in middle school. So I was sitting there reading books about Spock's memory, and while my teachers were talking. But so that was kind of a first love, and it's something I'd always wanted to do, writing-wise. I was a little intimidated by the fact that there's supposed to be science in science fiction. But then, I thought, there's no science in Firefly. There's no science in Star Wars. I'm just going to write kind of a space opera thing. And interestingly, I have some medical science in there because I have a beta reader that's really smart with that stuff, so she helps me out. But don't ask me how ships can fly. I don't do faster than light travel just because I don't even want to open that can of worms. I'm like, the background for the universe for both of them is that there were colony ships that took hundreds of years to get to the new system, and now the story exists in these systems. That's probably more than anybody cared about.
Actually, that was all I cared about for that question.
Okay, good.
So I'm really interested in your launch because you are known, at least the folks who talk to me about you, about your launches, how they're just so effective. So incredibly effective. What was your launch strategy for Star Nomad?
Sure. I actually kind of did the same thing I'd done 2 years early with the pen name, which I've blogged about before. I started it anonymously, so the first 2 months nobody even knew who it was, and I almost did it to prove to myself that yes, you can still get started today self-publishing as a nobody and do well. And so I wrote the first 3 books of the series before publishing anything. And with the Fallen Empire ones, I published the first one at 99 cents. This time I went into Kindle Unlimited right off the bat. This was my first time. I've always been wide. I've always not liked the idea of being exclusive with any one vendor. But you're on these forums, you hear how much people are making from page reads, and couple that with the fact that borrows count towards your sales ranking. Lately, it's really been a disadvantage on Amazon not to be in it, so I decided to try it, and I think that helped out. I launched the first one at 99 cents. I'd given away about 1,500 copies to my existing readers. I just figured, this will be free eventually someday, so I might as well give them a chance to get it for free, and I think that helped me get some early reviews. Second one came out just less than a week later, $3.99. And then the third one, I think it was within about the first 4 weeks it came out. And even though as I said, they're not really written to market, they definitely have commercial appeal, I feel. I say in the tag, I'm like, it's like Star Wars and Firefly, you'll love it. But they're not, I read Chris Fox's book and we've had them on our show, and they're definitely not like written to market, written to what's hot and popular. And I always think I'd love to try to do that because it seems very effective. Right. But I tend to only make about a chapter in before I'm like, got to go off and do my own thing. And this was the first time where I was able to get some ads on the book one, and I think that helped a lot too. I also kind of divided up the launch so it went out to my mailing list over 3 days. So it seems good these days if you can stagger things a little bit that first week and not get all of your juice on one day. Kind of like the BookBub ads. I'm sure you guys have talked about how Amazon seems to, as soon as you get a big boost, you kind of get pushed back down to where you were before. They don't, odds are not good of you sticking just off the back of a one-day big surge like that. So I definitely did try to, between the ads and the mailing list, try to spread things out over about a week.
My goodness. And a 1,500 reader mailing list doesn't hurt at all. How long did it take you to build that list?
Those were actually, I started a new list just for the Fallen Empire stuff, kind of for the sci-fi Amazon Kindle Unlimited people, because I knew I'd have people on my main mailing list, which I've never really promoted. There's about 6,000 people on there. I've never given them anything. It's just built up over a few years. Mm-hmm. And I knew those were mostly fantasy people, so I wanted to start over new and do a mailing list specifically for the science fiction. And so I offered anybody who signed up the free book, and that's kind of where the first 1,500 subscribers came from on that list. And then at the end of book one, I offered anybody who signed up a prequel. And, this is not me being smart. This was copying Chris Fox, which I'd written, which answered some questions and was from a different point of view character that people were curious about. And since that's grown to almost 6,000 subscribers just in, I guess it's been about 5-6 months now since I launched the first book, just from people who wanted to get the prequel. And so it's definitely been more effective. I mean, giving something away for free. People are more likely to sign up to your list than when you just have a form up on your website that says, oh, sign up for news and updates and whatever. So I highly recommend that. I had never done it on my old list just because I had so many series going. I didn't know what to entice people with. It's sort of like, oh, do I give them a Dragon Blood story, or I've got this steampunk series, or Emperor's Edge, and also I was lazy.
Right. Laziness counts. Absolutely. So when it comes to someone like me who I have a decent sized list, it's in the 3 figures. I'm proud of it. They love me. I love them back. Publishing maybe a few months. What do you think is essential for me to launch my book? I have another book coming October 25th. Not a plug, just a fact. But what is essential when it comes to launching a book when you don't have 6,000 people that you've worked hard to get over the course of 3 or 4 years?
Right. It's tough when do you have other books out, or is this book number 1?
This will be book number 2 in this series, 4 books out total.
Okay. Yeah, it's tough when you're starting out. It is. It's a lot of I'm actually super impressed by the people that start with nothing and hit, because I was always very gradual. I never had any huge stardom or success right off the bat. But, I would say a lot of things people are having success with right now is going obviously into Kindle Unlimited. Even if you're not committing to Amazon exclusivity forever, there's not really any reason not to try it for the first 3 months or whatever. And it can give you a boost. It can help you stick. I definitely believe that with this science fiction series, because like I said, it's not really written to market. I think they're fine stories. I think people like them, but they're not. I don't think it would have sticked if I hadn't been in Kindle Unlimited. I'll say that. So, and of course, 99 cents can be really useful for maybe the first week, especially if you're getting the page reads at the same time. So it's not like you're losing quite as much as if you're just making the 35 cents.
Right.
If it's a book two, I usually with book two, I'll launch that at full price. But then maybe concurrently run a sale on book one and try to book some ads, which I'm sure you know all this stuff already. And yeah, if you do have people on your mailing list, you can try to stagger it a little bit, depending on your, what level of mailing list provider you're paying for. They usually let you do that. Some people will go like from their least responsive people, will get it on day one, and then they'll have like their middle responsive people on day two, and then their biggest fans on day three, as far as who clicks, like who actually engages with the emails.
That makes sense.
And then you hope. And then you sacrifice a goat or chicken. And you hope.
Yes. I'll just offer a bucket of chicken. I can't do that blood thing. Did you? I'm sorry, I'm laughing at my own joke. You gave us the procedure when starting with the new one. Does it change when you're talking about a different genre, or do you find that it was basically the same and you shouldn't have worried?
I definitely feel like, with my fantasy, a lot of people will try a new series that are already existing readers. I feel like it's more of a jump going into science fiction. Like there's a closeness between the two genres. It's not quite as different as cozy mysteries about dogs saving the world and then George R. R. Martin epic fantasy, everybody dies. So there are similarities. I definitely I did have people jump over and try the new ones, but I don't think, I treated it as if I was starting from scratch. And then any boost I got in addition was great, but some of the things I did in addition to what we've talked about is I signed up with some other authors to do a free anthology, and that came out in June, so just a couple weeks after I released it. And we all wrote a short story for it, and I put one in that tied into my main characters. So I was thinking, ways to get other people to find the books. And then I've also we actually just released a box set I've got Star Nomad in there, and then we've got several people in there, and it's just more ways for people to find your work. So I'm always trying to, I can be lazy at times, but I try to do something like have something rolling every month. Like last month I got a BookBub ad, so that was nice. And just to try to keep people coming into the series and keep building up more of a readership so that, if I figure actually with the next science fiction series, that's kind of what I was always thinking, then I'll have a pretty good sci-fi readership built up, and hopefully that one will be pretty easy to launch.
Okay. Erica, do you have any questions?
I just wanted to go back to the price points. This is a question that some of the listeners are interested in as well. Is what made you decide on $3.99 as the full price for a novel, and 99 cents for the introductory book?
I've usually done $3.99 or like $4.99, $4.95 in the past for novels. My thing is kind of if it's over 100,000 words, I'll usually go up to like $4.95. If it's 75 to 100,000 words, $3.99. I just kind of do it in tiers to try to make it fair for the readers. The first books in this series, the first three books were only about 75, 80,000 words. They've kind of crept up since then, which often happens with a series. So that just seemed like a good price point. As far as 99 cents for the first one, I had only intended to make it temporary, and I still think I'm going to raise the price eventually, but it's just, it's so much easier to sell, I think, at 99 cents, and you don't have to leave it there. That was just my choice. I thought, I'll get more people in. I've done a perma-free book one with my series that are wide, both of my main series. When you got something, you have 7, 8 books in this series, doing that loss leader for book one, it seems logical to me, and it seems like a good deal. I always like to think about the reader too and try to give them a good deal. We're not in the libraries for the most part, so if they can get the first book cheap or for free, that's great with me. And then if it's not for them, then they didn't waste so much money. But if it is for them, then they'll go buy the rest of them at full price. I will say that regrets with 99 cents a little bit, because when you're in Kindle Unlimited, if you sell enough books, you tend to get noticed, and they'll kind of offer you, what do they call it? I don't know, a Kindle Daily deal, or sometimes they offer to promote your books a little bit, but they won't promote something that's already 99 cents. They like $2.99 or above so that it can discount it down. And I'm actually fortunate they're going to do later this month the third and fourth books in my series. I'll be dropping them to 99 cents for some Goodreads deal. So it's, I would just say that the bad thing about 99 cents is that you won't get any of those deals. So a lot of people, I think it's smart to do the launch at 99 cents and then raise the price. And once I keep saying once the sales ranking really drops off, then maybe I'll just throw it up to $3.99 and who cares? So, but I haven't been checking lately. So I love checking. I check all the time when it's on the rise, and it's doing well. But then when things start to drop, I'm like, oh, head in the sand. I don't see it. I just good. I'm still making some money. It's okay. It's okay. So.
That makes perfectly good sense. I do the same thing. Around when it's high and I'm ranking, yeah. Now it's just like, no, I think it's been days. Yes, it's been days since I've looked the last time. What is your strategy for getting reviews?
I have traditionally just kind of said in the back of the book, hey, if you like this book, would you leave a review? And I usually only bother with that on book one, because I figure that's the one where you really want people to try it. You're really hoping maybe book one will stick on Amazon or wherever and get noticed a little more. I have this last year played around with an ARC team. I'm kind of half-assed about that. Can I say ass on here?
Yes, you can.
Is this that kind of show? I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Late at night. I like to curse.
As much as possible.
I should say it more? Okay, I'll see if I can work it in. But so I did actually start a review group on Facebook this last year, mostly because we've interviewed so many people that have these really awesome review teams. And on book one, day one of their launch, they've got like 100 reviews, and I'm like, wow, I should be doing that too. I could probably do that. And I'm not sure how well it's worked, because I immediately switched to writing science fiction after I started the group, and they were all there for my fantasy. But I usually do okay. I'll get some reviews from the review team, people that get the advanced copies. I think in the future, right now I've got it set up on Facebook as a kind of a secret group or something, or closed group. And it's okay, but I think in the future I'm going to start a mailing list. I think that would be a little more logical way. One thing when it's a Facebook group, if they comment and things, you get all these notifications on your phone. And I'm like, I really just want you to have the advanced review copy and post a review. I don't want to discuss the flaws that were in this one. So that's about all I've done.
You sound like my kind of author. The more I listen to you, the more you sound like, yeah, this is the way I run my business too. And we're in the 0.5 years, so hopefully I'll be you when I grow up.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I'm very much, I've noticed, you had Amanda on here too. She's kind of admitted, I think, in various places that she doesn't do much for marketing either. She just writes those books and knocks them out. And I can't do it quite as quickly as she does, but I feel that that's kind of my biggest marketing thing, is just trying to continue writing this series. And I'll try for the book one launch of a new series, I'll put effort into it and get the ads and do the mailing list thing and try to get reviews. But for the most part, I'm just kind of going along and I'll do a little buy an ad here and there, but mostly just focusing on writing the next book.
Great. Chaz, did you have any questions for Lindsay Buroker?
Actually, Wayne Stinnett is in the forum, and he asks, Lindsay, do you segment your mailing list? If so, how do you break it apart?
I actually don't. It's on my to-do list. I've done the thing, what I mentioned earlier, where you can kind of segment it, or as far as mailings go out, by you can kind of choose in your mailing provider by people who have been more responsive or least responsive, or people that signed up 2 years ago versus 6 months ago. And so I will do it insofar as that. And this is only this is the first release I've bothered to do that with. To try to break it up over like 3 days. That's what I did this last time, and I think that was very effective. I would recommend that. You guys are supposed to talk when I mute myself to cough.
Oh, okay.
Grunt and nod sagely or something. I guess nodding doesn't help.
Peas and carrots.
What?
But I
I just
actually
assumed you dropped out. Sorry.
Sorry. You didn't see my face turning red and me like hacking into my hand over here. But I do have 2 mailing lists now also, so that is another way in the future I might, and I kind of did this for this one too, mail one list one day and then like the next week maybe mail the list that's less targeted. Like one is specifically for the science fiction, the other one's very general. I know I have people on there that are just other authors and have signed up because I blog about that stuff. So, all right. Who has a question?
I have a question. It's still about the mailing list, but and now I've forgotten what it was. Holy shit!
All right,
Sorry.
then. Well,
there is cursing.
I've got it.
Okay.
It was about automation. Now I know you said when you asked them to sign up to your mailing list if they're interested, and you obviously there's the automation for sending them the prequel story that you've promised them. But do you have any further automation than that, or have you just nah?
I do not, and I've thought about it because I actually came from kind of a blogging, internet marketing background, and I used to sign up for people's lists, and here you'd get like every day for a week, here's another tip, here's another tip. All I do is, I have like the links to the free stuff. I've actually added on. That's something I've done in the last 6 months or so as I've continued to publish the series. I think I've got 2 short stories now that I've given them for free, and a bonus second epilogue to one of the books that they, I think they really appreciate when they get free stuff in addition to just like, hey, here's a new book. Could you buy it, please? But I don't do, the main reason I haven't done the setup like, hey, a week ago I sent you a free book. Did you get it okay? If not, email me, or, if not, here it is again. First off, I don't really want to encourage people to email me. I love my readers, but oh my gosh, you guys, I get so much email between that. And I love the reader email, the self-publishing questions, and the podcast bring in quite a bit of email, but it's gotten to the point where I'm seriously thinking of getting a VA just to handle email stuff. But I hate to do that. I like to stay in touch with the readers. I love when they say happy things, nice things. But I don't want to get into a thing where I'm asking them a question in the actual email sign up, just because when you start to get like thousands of people on your list, that can really make a lot of work for yourself. Mm-hmm. I also don't want to have them get like this automation series, and then at the same time it just happens to be when I'm sending out an announcement about a new release. So then you could get in a situation where they getting 2 in one day from you. And even though I don't think that's necessarily bad from a marketing standpoint, from my introvert author self, it's really hard for me to want to, I still think like a lot of authors do, I think I'm like, oh, I don't want to bug people, by sending them too much email. And I totally understand that that's not the smartest thing necessarily. It's, usually, because I've noticed in the past when I've occasionally had to email them like twice, 1 week after the other for something, and I've said like, oh, and by the way, in case you missed it last week, here's this book that I just released. And I always use affiliate links so I can see if people actually buy the book, or tracking links. And you'll actually get a lot of people in that second round that apparently didn't see the first email and will buy it. So I don't think that's a bad idea. That's kind of why I haven't done it. I'm half-assed in many aspects. That's going to be my word for tonight. It's getting late and throwing the potty mouth stuff.
Oh, that's okay, because once again, you give us hope that we can be half-assed and a little lazy and still churn out the books and still in time with effort and hard work have a living. Yay!
But
it's actually very true. I told you I did blogging before this. I used to have a bunch of websites that I put nonfiction information on, and then had ads and affiliate income from. And I definitely noticed that you could eventually make money just by being consistent, like being not sucky and consistent and doing it year after year, year in and year out. A lot of the people I've, like I said, started 5, almost 6 years now. A lot of people have disappeared A lot of people that were big hits in 2011, you Google these people or look them up on Amazon, and they're just gone. You know, maybe they published a second series that didn't take off, and they just fell away after that. So there's a lot to be said just for sticking with it. And
They got into real estate
like,
too.
you don't have to be. It's a good time for that.
It is here.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing. That's where my author money goes. I bought a house beginning of the year. Gonna get some more of them.
We have a question from Christopher in the chat. He said that you mentioned that you weren't writing to market. Are there any interesting trope violations or things done differently from the current crop of space opera?
In my books?
Yes.
I have I just write very character-driven stuff. It's not like like I said, it's not commercial. It's not so far out there that nobody's going to read it, or I'm going to have a super hard time finding an audience. I do have a cyborg that is part of the quest over 8 books is for him to get back the ability to have sex. That's probably not been done a whole lot, because they took that away as part of his military surgery. They didn't want them harassing people and stuff. So that's probably not been seen a whole lot. I don't know if it's against any tropes, but usually the male protagonist is going to be virile and manly and not have erectile issues.
So you basically wrote a Ken doll. Like Ken doll in search of my penis.
That is his quest. By the way, spoilers, because in book 1 you don't actually know that. It doesn't come out until like book 3.
Whoops.
So sorry y'all.
I think I might read them anyway.
Quick, into the time
More
machine.
people will
We
be
have fixed the
interested.
spoiler.
All right. Just mute that. Y'all didn't hear that. Skip back a minute, or skip forward a minute.
We totally heard that, and now we want to read them.
Christopher just commented that the cyborg should look in the junkyard. Funnily enough, I believe the first book starts in the junkyard.
He is in a junkyard because he needs a ship so he can go off on his quest. So there you go. What I'm trying to do is start new tropes. Somebody has to do it.
Yeah, I'll follow you on that one.
Yes, the trope keeper, the trope maker. Oh my goodness.
Well, we know that the androids are meant to be fully functional, so you've obviously gone against that one with the cyborg. So
I've got some androids that come in later on, and yes,
they're
that was
more like
established
Ken dolls.
society. There are some fully functional androids. I have a lot of sex jokes in my books. Pea humor. I never grew up, so I just feel really fortunate that there are readers out there that enjoy my humor.
I totally am, and I've read them. And when's the next one coming out?
Soon. Yeah, my editor has it. She's had a busy month. She's selling her house, so it's taking her a little longer than usual. But I think I'm shooting for like the 23rd.
Oh, awesome! The 23rd. That brings up another one. You've mentioned before on Twitter and Facebook that you can usually write the first draft of a Fallen Empire book in approximately 2 weeks. What on earth does your day look like?
It might take 3 weeks for this one I'm working on now, because they're getting longer. First, the secret is to keep your books to about 80,000 words. Once they get to the 100,000 and more, it takes longer. But I work I do this full time now, so I feel very fortunate that I'm not trying to squeeze it in between other things. I have authors that work full time, have kids, and still manage to write like 3 or 4 novels a year, and I'm super impressed. All I have is a couple dogs I got to take out in the mornings, and so I managed to find stuff to distract myself. But yeah, I can usually write like 5,000 to 10,000 words a day, and just depends. I usually do things in the morning. That's kind of my time to go. I try to get outside every day. I do the hiking with the dogs, and I play tennis, and apparently that's good for you to not just sit on your butt at the chair for 12 hours. So I definitely try to take breaks, but I will be kind of obsessed until I meet my word count goal for the day. I tend to make that the focus and try to start on that before I jump into email and working on whatever box sets or joint author promotions and things like that. So if you write that much, it comes out pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah, 5,000 words a day. Yeah, that, I would say it would come out really quickly. I noticed that you had, we had mentioned this before, and it was on your blog about, um, oh,
He
for
wandered
those of
in, so
for those of you
video
who are on
people can see
audio,
the dog.
yes, video people can see an absolutely beautiful Vishla, which is like a Weimaraner, but it's not gray, it's brown, and they smell so good. And I
They're
totally
not
forgot what
smelly,
my
it's
question
true.
was.
They're pretty clean dogs.
I totally forgot what my question was. I'm sorry. I
Five to
got put the
10,000 words will get you a rough draft in a couple weeks. And I think after you've written several novels, it just gets a little more efficient. I don't tend, sometimes there will be something to rewrite. I send it out to beta readers and get their comments. But usually my first drafts are pretty clean. After that, I just go through and fix typos and missing words and things. That's my thing. My brain's always ahead of my fingers, and I kind of see the movie playing out in my head, and which means amazingly words that have nothing to do with the word I meant to use will just appear on the screen. So I try to catch those on my second read through, and there's usually still some good ones for the beta readers.
Right. So your workaround is still. I'm still trying to wrap my head around 80,000 words in 14 days. I'm trying to do 50,000 in 20, and I'm already behind.
I think most of the people I've talked to that have full-time jobs and kids get up really early to make it work. Every now and then there's night owls, but I actually used to be a night owl, and I moved to Arizona where it's blazingly sunny in the morning, and that helps you get out of bed a lot earlier. But I think if you can get, what is that saying about eat the frog or something like that, do that first hardest task first thing in the day. I can see from the expression on your face that you haven't eaten many frogs.
Well,
get the hardest task.
I haven't heard the expression, but no.
I think it's a book. I think there's a book about frogs.
Isn't it like eating one piece at a time or something like that?
Well, it's just basically get kind of your hardest, most challenging task out of the day first.
Yes. If you start the day by eating a toad, then the rest of the day
is toad. I screwed you up. It's not a frog. Totally a toad.
Eat the elephant one bite at a time.
The elephant. There we go.
Kate Morgan wants to know, because she is an inquiring mind, plot or pants? Or totally pantsless? Kate Morgan is inquisitive.
Totally pantsless. What kind of kinky show is this you guys are running?
We're just pink. It's just no pants.
None of us are wearing pants.
I'm overdressed. I have shorts on. Okay. I am a plotter these days. I started out as a pantser, wrote myself into kind of a lot of, like, your characters are locked in a dungeon with no way out. And then I just abandoned the novel because I'm like, oh, that's too hard to figure that out. But I've gotten better at figuring out how to get characters out of dungeons, but I've just found, I'm sure you've discussed it many times on the show, Rachel Aaron's 2K to 10K. When I'd read that, I already kind of figured that out, that I needed to know ahead of time what I'm going to write, and it's a lot easier to knock out like those 5,000 words if I've got like the next two scenes just plotted out. And that's what I'll do sometimes when I'm walking the dogs or at the gym, is just kind of figure it out in my head what's happening over the next couple chapters. And I just use my phone, like the notes app on my phone, and I'll be like, and just kind of the beats, I guess, is what the self-publishing podcast guys call them.
Right.
So, yeah, if I'll do an outline, tend to deviate a lot from the outline, but I like it. There's a framework. I like to know how the book ends, and then, like I said, I'll try to get the next couple chapters, or at least a few scenes, know exactly what I'm going to write, and it makes it a lot easier for me to sit down and write. Right. I can pants a novel. Sometimes it happens just because I was lazy, or I'm like, oh, it's only a novella. I don't need an outline. I can make it work, but I found it much more efficient for me to plot it out ahead of time.
Yeah, 15,000 words later, you're like, what? Yeah, I know that one well.
What about for the series? You've decided, you've said in advance that Fallen Empire is going to be 8 books long. How did you decide 8 books, and how far out have you plotted that from when you first started?
I tend to not plot many novels in advance because my outlines do change so much. I kind of had an idea of how this would end when I got started. I was originally committing to 5 books. So, I wrote this first 3 before I even sent the first one to the editor. So I had a pretty good idea of how things got started. And then I've left myself some flexibility. Like, if it didn't sell well at all, I was probably going to wrap it up at 5 books. But since they were doing pretty well, something like that.
Yeah.
I was able to justify continuing on with the series. And 8 just seemed about right. That seems to be about how long my series go. I think if you keep going past that, you get into a thing where the only people reading the books, obviously, are the people who made it through the 8 prior books. And, I feel like I have a lot of people reading all the way through, but you're always going to have some people that fall off along the way, too. So, I would probably avoid personally going into like 10 plus more books in a series. I love the idea of doing like a spin-off series or trilogy. So then you have a chance to get those new people again with a fresh new book one. And so I've already got the next series to start in the spring, and I've committed to doing a trilogy, and then we'll see.
I kind of wonder sometimes if there's been a change in the culture where I see it particularly with Netflix, or you'll see where people will binge watch shows. So I've run into people where I'll talk to them about some series, and it's like, no, I'm not watching it all at all until it's all done, so I can just watch the entire thing. I was, people who knew that Breaking Bad was awesome, a bunch of them decided to actually have the patience to wait until it was totally done before they even started, because they wanted to, I don't know what they do, get into Depends and spend entire March break on the couch, I'm assuming. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if that's affecting books as well, where you have to complete a series and then it's actually more easy to market once you have an entire series ready to go.
Maybe. I do think that once the series is over, though, it's actually more challenging to keep marketing it and keep selling new books, because at that point you've probably already had a BookBub or whatever site, if you can get the BookBub, you've done ENT and all the other sites, and maybe you've hit them up once or twice. And so a lot of people have seen your book one. So, because I have this challenge now with my older series, is to keep those books selling 2, 3, 4 years after the series is wrapped up. I do think there are people that like to do that. I know I get very excited when I find a new book from an author, and I'm like, yes, there's 8 more books. Usually what happens to me is I find it, I'm like, well, she doesn't have another book? Yeah. Or it's not coming out until next year. What's wrong with these trad publishers and their slow publishing schedules? I get cranky. Yeah. So I understand that, and I agree with that mentality. I think readers definitely binge read. I think I've had people tell me they've done that with my books, and I know I've done it as a reader. I do think it's a challenge. And maybe the way to go is just to hold all 8 books and release them at once. I don't think most of us have that patience, but I would consider it if, I definitely saw more. When I released my first 3, I had more, lots of people buying those, and they kind of stuck for a while. And then, things kind of fall off. You've got people going through the series, but it's hard to get that same momentum again as when you had your launch. Short of a BookBub ad.
Yeah, I wonder if there is a interim strategy where you could be mid-series and then put out, say you have a trilogy, so you put out the first 3 books in a box set, and then do the same again later on in the series, depending on how long it is, and breaking it up in intervals where you're selling a batch to renew interest in the series to new readers.
I've definitely had that experience with my box sets. Like I said, sometimes you've done your book one a number of times with the advertising sites, and with the box set, maybe you put the first 3 together and you're going to run it at 99 cents, and that's okay because you've got 4 more books for them to buy after that. And I found that when you do that, you can kind of try out new covers, and maybe you put yourself into different categories this time. With my Dragon Blood series, I wrote a really different blurb for the box set, and actually the box set took off and sold way better than the individual books did when I first launched them. So sometimes you just kind of happen to chance upon the right wording or the right category. I mean, that set for me stuck in the 200s on Amazon for like 6 months. It was 99 cents, but that was a really good year for me. That was last year. This year's been pretty good too, thanks to the Fallen Empire stuff. But now I feel the pressure to always do something like that. You always have to have one series selling really well if you want to keep the momentum going.
That is interesting that you mentioned changing up the description, because a lot of people focus on, if they're going to revamp a book or books in a series, they'll change the covers. But there's really no way to measure it across the board. It's just experimentation, I guess, where you change the cover, see if that changes the stickiness or gives a boost in sales. Change the description, and then make minor adjustments, giving just enough time for each adjustment to show some effect.
Yes, I can say with my Emperor's Edge box set that, because I started out with it and it was like a blurb for book 1, blurb for book 2, blurb for book 3. That was my description in the box set thing. And it did okay, but I definitely noticed, like, a year later I did another book bub on that, dropped it to 99 cents for that and had an all new description. Just kind of trying, instead of you describing the first book, just sort of, this was more like towards a series. And it did a lot better. So you can definitely, like, if you are lucky enough to get book bubs, regularly or successive years, I think it's worth getting a new cover the second time and trying a new blurb and just trying to appeal to the people who didn't click on it last time. And they may love your book. Your first blurb didn't really do anything for them.
That's interesting. I am definitely having that. I'm conducting that experiment right now. I changed a blurb recently where it says, "This is the book I hope my family never reads." I think that'll sell a lot more.
I did see that on Facebook today.
God, I hope they don't see this.
The combination laugh cough over here. So you entertained me so much, I coughed. Entertained me. Words are getting hard. It's getting late at night. I don't know.
You're not even drinking wine.
I know. I should have drank wine. I'd be more relaxed. And I'm like, oh, talking fast.
Deep breaths. Deep breaths.
This is scary. It's not my show. It's a different show, and it's scary.
Yes. Sorry, we're scary, but not really. You're doing fine. No, really.
Y'all are fierce. Fierce looking.
So you've said that last year was a good year, and this year's turning out to be all right as well. For most of this year, you've been publishing just Fallen Empire. Do you usually fixate so much on just the one series? Or, I'm not saying it in a bad way.
Are you fixated on shiny objects?
But us people who like shiny objects and your books are really happy with this. But are you worried that you might be losing some of your other readers, especially those who prefer your fantasy stories?
Yes, I've definitely had people been like, oh, when's, Rust and Relics 3 coming out, or Chains of Honor 3? And I do feel bad because especially the people who aren't Kindle Amazon people, they've been just kind of out of luck as I'm publishing this series because I'm only on Kindle. So it's been kind of tough, and I have fielded some emails, and I'm like, I'm getting to the end of this, and then I'm going to jump back into some of the fantasy stuff I have going, so I at least can tell them, like, that's next. But actually in the past I've jumped around more, and I find this has been much more efficient for me. I like it. It's probably going to be my MO going forward. I do have some other series that I have to wrap up first, but I've gotten to the point now where I've written enough books that if I leave a series for a while, I have to go back and reread the earlier books in the series to remember what's going on and kind of get back into the flow of things. So by just writing them back to back pretty quickly, I haven't had to do that, so it's been more efficient, and I've actually enjoyed it. I think when it took me longer to write books, I felt, I don't know, I need to take more breaks, or maybe my brain's just wired a little differently now. I don't know. It helps that this one, like my Emperor's Edge series, was the same way. It's kind of got a romance that takes all 8 books to complete, and having that still stuff that still has to be resolved kind of keeps me excited about it. Cyborg's got to get their game on,
Yeah, I was just going to say,
I saw you grinning. I knew you were thinking.
No.
That's right. So it keeps me excited about a series that way. And well, not that specifically, but some, like in my Dragon Blood series, the romance was like, oh, book 1, happily ever after. And then it sold well enough, and I missed the characters and the world that I wanted to do more. And it's still fun, and there's still things you can do with the people even after they've gotten their groove on. Still things you can do with the characters to keep them growing and keep things interesting. But having some things that left unresolved keeps me excited as a writer and has allowed me to just kind of boom, 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 8 books here in about eight months or so.
You're the host of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Marketing Podcast. From that experience, what was the best tip or technique you've copied from another author?
Pathetically, probably going into Kindle Unlimited, just because we've had so many people that have been like, I'm selling tons and tons of books and tons of science fiction, and I'm like, are you in Kindle Unlimited? And yes, we had one person, I still remember, Elise Covey, Young Adult Fantasy. She's like, in the last year, she's the one person that like really knocked it out of the park with her launch and killed it without being in Kindle Unlimited. So as much as I don't like the exclusivity, I finally caved thanks to so many people, seeing so many people successful that way. I could probably think of more tips, but I might have to have more than 2 seconds to
This is a low pressure situation. We can give you 5 seconds if you'd like.
Yes.
I don't know. I remember one thing I actually got from it wasn't our show. It was that Writers Summit convention. The gal who J.A. Huss, I think, who did I think she does contemporary romance, and she was saying that she sends out like tons of copies to advanced review copy readers, and then she writes some really cool back of the book shit, is what she called it. More cursing for the podcast, and that kind of got people to want to buy the actual book, even though they'd gotten their free review copy. And then it was a verified review on Amazon. So I tried that with Star Nomad. I don't know if it worked, but I actually did write some back of the book stuff in that one and all. So I think that's a pretty cool idea. You want to give out those free review copies, but as everybody kind of knows, if it doesn't say verified purchase on Amazon, it's people question it a little bit, and I don't know if it's true, but I've heard them say that those get weighted a little higher and maybe appear higher in the review list. I don't know if that's true or not, but so that was one good tip that was not from my podcast. So basically, I changed the parameters of your question there. Sorry.
That's quite.
It's like the Kobayashi Maru. I made it work for me.
Yeah. I knew that was going to come up. And you said
I'm from the Science Fiction Fantasy Podcast, and what do you expect?
You knew it was coming up. Oh my goodness. I usually do a quick fire, but there's so many more things I want to talk to you, and I've already asked you about the dogs. We saw your puppy. So
he's still here. He's like, what are you doing talking to yourself? We should be in bed now. It's only 8, but they like to go to bed early, and so I take my laptop back there. More information than listeners wanted to know.
Now we want to know all of it. We want to know every last bit of it.
Authors want, got to know what your author's bedroom and bathroom habits are. It's very important to keep up.
You know what? It makes us feel good about ourselves, truly.
Like, if this screwed up person can write books and have them sell, there is hope for me.
Yes. Authors are human too. So can I just quickly go into the world building on the last 6 minutes we have left? But
yeah,
where did the Fallen Empire world come from? What was the little spark of inspiration, and how did you build on it?
Oh gosh, I've kind of always liked, and I wrote about this in my back of the book stuff. I've always liked stories where your hero and heroine, or just two people that are protagonists, are kind of from the opposite sides of the war, or just they're people who are fighting against each other. I've talked about before how my favorite movie as a kid, Fox and the Hound. So you have these two people that really shouldn't be together, whether romantically or non-romantically, or just friends, and kind of how they can make it work despite their differences. So that's a common thread in a lot of stories. I've done a lot of things where like they're from opposing sides in a war. So I made this, so I guess coming from that, I figured I'd have, you know, the Alliance and the Empire, and we've just finished a war. I don't really like writing war stories, so it was fun for me to kind of pick up right after the war ended, and sort of that era when everything's just torn apart. And I figured it would be, there could be lots of things to explore, and in that kind of world you could have a lot of like chaos. You know, I've got some mafia clans and stuff that come in later on, and it just seemed like it'd be a fun world. Somewhat definitely inspired by Firefly. I guess their Empire was still, or Alliance, or what did they have? They had the Alliance in Firefly.
Mm-hmm.
It's been too long, you guys. I'm a bad fan. I haven't watched the DVDs lately.
It's been 14 years.
They had all those border worlds, you know, that weren't really policed. So I kind of like that idea, that just a lot of opportunity for kind of an Old West chaotic feel.
Mm.
Did you build your world before, or did you do most of your world building before or after your first book was written?
A little bit before. I kind of had this idea in my notes app on my phone, the supreme way for very organized authors to keep track of things. You know, I'd been kind of putting notes in for a few months. That's how I know I need to write something, is if it doesn't go to the bottom, you know, if I keep adding things into it. And one of the nice things about writing the first 3 books before publishing anything was that I do tend to world build a lot on the fly, and I just, as I make something up, you know, I go over here in my Scrivener file and it goes in the story Bible kind of thing. So doing 3 books before I had published anything allowed me to keep adding things as I went, and it was easy to go back to the first book and kind of incorporate that. So a little bit of both, I guess, is the answer to the question.
Yes, it does. Because I'm obsessed with world building. I absolutely love it. And so I want to see how
I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with character stuff, and it's really easy for me to forget a lot of the, you know, that's kind of my weakness, is like probably the religion is my biggest weakness. I'm not religious at all, so I tend to forget that other people are, and that's actually a really neat thing to explore in stories. I keep saying someday I'm going to do a priest or something, but yeah, it's actually a weak part for me. So I love the characters, and I have to remind myself that sometimes the world I'll actually think of the character first, and then I kind of make a world that works to explain this character's existence and his outlook on life.
That makes perfectly good sense. And what's funny is that I am an extremely religious person, and my books have no religion in them whatsoever. Don't want to bother.
That makes me feel better then.
Don't want to bother.
I'm not the only one forgetting about it, or just not prioritizing it, maybe.
Right, it's very low on that totem pole. We have a couple of more minutes. Any other questions?
I don't have anything from the forum, although people are really happy about that cyborg.
Yes.
He's a big selling point.
It makes you feel better about your own manhood, right?
Yeah.
He's otherwise badass, though, just FYI. He's not like a wussy cyborg. That would just be wrong.
That would be weird.
I think I've really got to pump up the existence of my sex bots in my robot book.
I have a sex bot. I just haven't written the rest of the series. It's just got a opening short story, and that's it. And everyone's like, "Oh,
you should, because you do science fiction romance, right?"
Yeah, I just got to get
should be a
around
staple.
to it. I've written some, like half of the next book, but yeah. Oh, shiny, you know. Something else. But yeah.
Yes.
It's funny. I
have to make myself finish series before starting new things. It's too easy to run off and jump on new projects.
Right. I wait until series are done because I don't want them to die on me. I'm looking at you, Robert Jordan. And
Krishan Gillihanna, a bitter woman.
Or George.
At least if you're really popular, your publisher will arrange for someone to finish it for you.
Right.
You don't really have that guarantee with self-publishing, so that's tough.
That's why my favorite joke is that I'm going to wait until Brandon Sanderson finishes Game of Thrones for me to finish reading the rest of them.
That's a dark joke, and George R.R. Martin is very upset with you right now.
You know what? He can write. I'm writing.
I can just kill another character to make you unhappy, but that would make you happy because it means he's writing, right?
Right? Yes. There is no winning with me.
Okay. Let's wrap things up. Thank you very much, Lindsay, for coming in and joining us today and answering all of our questions.
All right. Thank you for having me.
Where can people find you on the internet when your website is working?
My website hosting not screwed up. Yeah, you can find me at lindsayburoker.com. Hopefully tomorrow. I'm calling tomorrow. I never call. I hate calling anyone, especially when you have to read passwords and things like that, but there's no choice. I have to call to get my site back up.
Mm-hmm. Yes. An author needs a website. You heard it here.
An amazing number of people will tell you it's down. People you've never heard from. Like, I had no idea that many people cared.
They want to be helpful.
Yes. Well, it's good. I suppose if nobody noticed, that'd be sad.
This is true. So, also a big thank you to our live viewers and our live listeners, and to those who aren't live but are still alive. We've got to rewrite this.
Oh, that was very clever. Good job.
But yeah. Robert, thank you for coming in. Where can people find you on the internet?
They can find me at allthatjazz.com. I've got a new book coming out in a couple of weeks, but tonight I want to say that you need to listen to the latest episode of the Author Strong podcast. I was on with Matt and Nancy today, and we had a fantastic discussion about relaunching old series, pseudonyms, and the perils thereof. So check out the Author Strong podcast after you've listened to the Self-Publishing Roundtable,
which they can do in just 2 minutes. And Krishan, thank you for coming in. Where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me at alazar.com, ALLAZAR.com, and Alazar Universe on Instagram and Facebook. And if you are having trouble with if you're having trouble with your world building, I have now started a new service called Creator of Worlds, and through the Writership. And that's at writership.com/world-building. So you can find me there too.
And I'm Erica Conroy.
Will you do religion for me?
Sorry?
How much do I have to pay to get a nice religion for my world?
Yes, I can.
All right, we'll talk.
And I'm Erica Conroy, and because I haven't written anything lately, you're not going to my website. You're going to the self-publishingroundtable.com instead. And you can also join us for our Halloweeny promo, promoting our ebooks from the 29th to the 31st of October. If your book is a paranormal book, supernatural, horror, or Halloween themed in nature, the information is all there on our website. Just go check it out, self-publishingroundtable.com. Right. Next week, we are talking with a crime fiction author who will tell us exactly how to write crime fiction. Yeah! And until then, what do we say, Robert, to the internet?
We say good night. Put yourself to bed. Pull the covers over your head. Put your head on the pillow. I'm coming for you now.
Somewhat alarming to those 6 a.m. joggers who are listening to the podcast right now.
6 a.m. joggers, look behind you. It's me.
You do look like you're jogging with your ball cap on and your hoodie. Good night, internet.